ABC Wednesdays. Tim Allen and Kat Dennings star in the new family comedy Shifting Gears.
Dad, I'm broke and I need a place to stay until I figure out what the rest of my life looks like.
So, a couple of days.
When his daughter moves back in.
The last time you walked out that door, you looked back at me and gave me a double bird.
I was 18. The double bird was how I ended all our conversations.
The wheels come off.
Can we try to talk to each other like rational adults?
Have you watched the news lately? That's not a thing anymore.
New Wednesdays, 8, 7 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Some things you wouldn't mind being stuck with, like a huge inheritance. But a phone that has to be plugged in just right so it charges is not one of those things. Switch to Verizon and we'll pay off your old phone up to $800 via prepaid MasterCard for a new one on us. Just trade in any phone from our top brands with select unlimited plans. $829.99 purchase with new smartphone line on select unlimited plans. Minimum $90 per month with autopay plus taxes and fees for 36 months required. Less $830 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Trade-in terms apply. Payoff phone requires smartphone purchase and port-in with new smartphone line on select plan. Must provide most recent bill showing payoff amount of eligible phone. Additional terms apply.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, when a mob hitman leaves witness protection and moves to Arizona, his son launches a drug ring, crossing horns with a pill pusher from Liverpool. We'll talk about the Max original documentary, Sons of Ecstasy. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of the These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin, why did you bring a clue-style weapon to our taping today?
Okay, well, for what folks need to know is that we are recording a lot later than we normally would, or at least later than we were scheduled, because we had a plumbing emergency in the house. So we had water like which was seeping in the basement up from underneath the flooring. And so, fortunately, the plumber that we usually use was available. He came over.
He's the best.
He located a hole in a leaky pipe in the wall. And I'm just going to show you because I got it right here, guys.
Oh, my God.
And you can see.
It looks like a weapon from Clue, does it not?
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And so, again, I know, like, on the podcast, like, it's hard to, you can't see this, but hopefully this will make it to TikTok or something. But take a look at the hole that was in the pipe.
So what caused the pull? Like cold weather? Just age?
Oh, no, years of age.
These pipes are from 1960.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you is that if you press, I'm breaking it more. If you press down this copper pipe here, this is all soft until it finally split, I guess, eventually,
Yeah, we have
yesterday.
to replace all the pipes in our house. That's something that when we renovated our house a few years ago, they told us at some point you're going to have to replace all these pipes.
We have pipe cancer is what we have.
And we had another pipe that had pinholes in it, and like there was toilet stink coming up through the floor. Yeah, so Kevin, we got to get on that. But I will say, shout out to our plumber. He's amazing. We love him very much. And I'm not going to share his name because I don't want him to be too busy when we need him, which we obviously do.
Worked all day. Him and his partner got all sorts of material. And I think this is amazing. It was $500.
What?
Yeah.
I know, right? Usually it's like $500 to show up at your house.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Wow.
We have an incredible handyman / carpentry guy and an incredible plumber. Our handyman carpenter guy, he's a carpenter. He's not just a handyman. He came over and we were like, our deck is a little like uneven. And he was like, your whole deck is falling off of your house. You're going to die. And he spent an entire day or a day and a half, like with materials and everything, saving our house, basically.
Jacking up the sagging
shit up,
part of the...
fixing stuff, bringing wood. It was like $400 or something.
Wow.
Like that. Yeah. Anyway, we're very fortunate to have found good people.
We are very fortunate. And we're very fortunate that you guys were patient with us and were able to move back this recording time here so that we could get Crime Writers done.
We'd have our son deliver our food down here while we're recording.
I can just eat my Italian sub.
I'll just eat my manicotti while we're taping this podcast.
Probably not. Probably not.
Should we get it done then?
Yeah, aren't you going to ask me what's coming up?
Oh, well, I was going to say, speaking of Italians, Kevin, what's coming up on Thursday's show? This is Monday's show, obviously.
It's Monday's show. Speaking of Italians, we've got Sons of Ecstasy today. On Thursday, we have the podcast Scary Terry from Sony Music Entertainment.
How did you say that again?
Scary Terry.
You say it like it rhymes. It doesn't rhyme. Scary Terry. Say it again.
Scary Terry.
That's better. Okay. All right.
Scary Terry.
Should we talk about the things we're supposed to be talking about?
Let's talk about those things.
All right. Let's get it done. Leading off.
In 1991, facing life in prison, Sammy the Bull Gravano turned on his boss, John Gotti.
John Gotti, I, along with some others, murdered Paul Castellano. John Gotti became the boss. I became official underboss, which I held until I began to cooperate with the government in 1991.
After ratting out John Gotti and leaving witness protection, Sammy the Bull Gravano joins his adult children in Phoenix to start over. Despite trying to go legit, his son Gerald is making extra money selling ecstasy at underground raves.
I knew people in New York and people I grew up with that I was still very friendly with. And I started asking around, could we get ecstasy? What's the price? I was trying to get it cheaper. Well, I did find someone. I had it set up where I was going to get 30, 40,000 pills.
Gerald finds himself in a turf war with English Shaun, a former British stockbroker who's now Arizona's biggest e-dealer. As police look to disrupt the party drug trade, they're stunned to learn the famous New York hitman is in the middle of it all.
I was looking through binoculars, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's Sammy the Bull Gravano.
The Max original documentary, Sons of Ecstasy, features Sammy the Bull and the whole Gravano family, plus members of the rival crew. The show lets its subjects do the talking about their crimes, their beefs, and their ideas of what loyalty means. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from Sons of Ecstasy, so if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So, Toby, Sammy the Bull Gravano, turns out he's a great dad.
It is one of the weirder things about this documentary that we're supposed to sort of fawn over Sammy the Bull, despite the fact that he's killed at minimum 19 different people.
Admits it.
Admits it, is pretty proud of it. And they kind of portray him as, I don't know, maybe a little irascible or something. But then also both kids talk about what a great dad he was. Although I think the actual evidence that you get in the show shows that he's actually probably not that great a dad, and that they're so sort of cut off from normalcy from their upbringing that they don't have the usual criteria for judging the parenting of their father that most people would. So, for instance, the fact that Gerard feels as though he might have to go and kill some people to live up to the family name, to me, seems like problematic fathering, but we're up here in New Hampshire. Maybe it's a different scene.
Yeah. I mean, just because you like your parents doesn't mean they're good people or good parents. I mean, that's a whole thing that we can talk about another day. So, Kevin, this is a study in unreliable narrators, is it not?
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those stories where you have to completely believe everything everybody is saying.
You don't have to, but you're asked to.
You don't have to, right? But you are definitely asked. And maybe once or twice there's some gentle pushback from the filmmakers on the bullshit, but they just let everybody go off about how smart they are and about how tough they are and about how misunderstood they are and how much they didn't really break the law, or that he kind of broke the law, but it really wasn't that bad. But a good guy for taking the fall and all this other shit. So it's pretty typical whenever we have a mob guy that they have to talk tough and they have to sort of live up to the kind of weird persona that they want to put on. I mean, the fact that he's still alive.
It's pretty extraordinary.
It's pretty extraordinary, right? That, they even knew where
Henry
he was
Hill
in prison.
was never killed either after he left witness protection.
Yeah, but he continues to play the part. And he's got this whole bullshit story about when he went to confession.
Did you ever go to confession and tell the priest your sins?
Yeah, I went to confession. I told the priest, you tell me yours and I'll tell you mine.
I mean, okay, right, enough with being a tough guy asshole, But I mean, that's you. That's your brand.
Yeah. What did you think, Laura, about the whole idea that we are listening to a story being told to us by people we know because they tell us are liars?
Yeah, I was like, it's like Breaking Bad meets The Sopranos meets any sort of one of those domestic suspense thrillers where we have totally unreliable narrators. And I'm like, you know what? We just have to be along for the ride at this point. Like, we can't try to analyze who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth. Just be like, hey, get a load of this guy. That's a good story. And the fact, like you said, that Sammy is still alive and he has a podcast series on YouTube. I'm like, my God, like this guy, he's not exactly like incognito.
Not laying low.
Yeah, not laying low. He was in that like How to Be a Mob Boss show. And just the fact that we have such a colorful cast of characters. And I always comment about like when they're always filmed in like these locations, like here we are in an abandoned warehouse while we're talking to this person or wherever. So it was one where you're like, okay, don't take this too seriously. Just sort of let it wash over you.
Yeah. What did you think about the he was a good dad messaging that we got from his children and his daughter? And he apparently, like, she's a daddy's girl, and he's like, he's always there for us. He's such a good father.
Except for when he was in prison all those years.
Yeah. And there is something to this, like, old school family thing where, like, as long as people are there for you and listen to your bullshit and their family's the most important thing in the world. Like, what did you think about that whole deal with the kids?
It was interesting with the daughter in particular, because you're watching this lead up and she's claiming that she had no idea what he did for work when she was a kid. And you see these like clips of him in the news, and then you see clips of her in First Communion or something. And it's like this dichotomy between his public life and his family life. But it was interesting that she was so naive to what was going on. And I'm like, is this like was she?
Well, they lived on Staten Island. They were pretty cut off from the world.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was like, and then I'm like, is this like the gangster code? Like we like provide for our family, but we don't tell them, oh, dad's going to work at the meatpacking plant or whatever it is he's going off to do. It was very interesting the way that the family stayed tight through all these years. And obviously when they went into business together in Arizona.
When we moved to Phoenix, we were definitely fish out of water. But there was this whole underbelly in the middle of the desert having rave parties.
You mean that she couldn't put two and two together when they decided to leave town by digging up $3 million in the backyard? It's like, we're just going to Arizona, fuck it. Like most kids do. He doesn't trust banks.
He doesn't trust banks.
Because there's a hit put out on her brother.
Yes. I have a question for you, Toby.
Okay.
Why do you think the Italian mafia, which, as we know, has degraded quite a bit since the days of John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano and John Castellano, who John Gotti had killed so that he could be the head of the New York Mafia. Why do you think that they've left this guy and other guys like him alive, just like to be in the world and tell their bullshit stories?
I mean, I don't think he's probably a threat to anybody. I mean, are they worried he's going to like make a move on the narcotics business in Staten Island? I mean, he's often retired. Why would you want to bring that? I think I've read that the mafia guys actually kind of love sort of the legend that's built around them and stuff. So I think if Sammy the Bull is out there kind of peddling these myths about the mafia and the codes and all this shit, like they probably think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's good for their brand.
Yeah, so just let it go. He's not a threat. He's kind of adding to, the je ne sais quoi of being in the mob. So there's no harm.
So yeah, Kevin, regarding that $3 million in cash, do you think they're just trying to like butter both sides of their bread here?
Well, yeah, they kind of wanted both ways. Like, as Laura says, well, we're just a regular family and like we go out to dinner together, whatever. We just happen to have a famous father. But they also, like you said, dug up $3 million in the backyard and they had to get out of town. And then we have the thing like, I grew up with people that would just kill you as soon as look at you. Telegraphing, I'm tough. Toby's right. I mean, they certainly like love their own mythos that they build around themselves, and they're like committed to it. And I think you get a little more sincerity from British Shaun, only because he doesn't still have this persona to live up to. He's not doing podcasts and other things like that. Isn't the daughter on like Mob Wives or some other reality show?
Probably. Who knows? I'm just gonna jump in here and say, I fucking hate mafia stories. I hate the glorification of the mafia. I don't get it. I don't know who it's for, other than certain dudes who actually think there's something about this that's aspirational or something. Who is this for? Man. Who is like, I can't wait to hear someone like Sammy the Bull Gravano talk about the glory days when he could just take a pipe and kill somebody and throw their body in the Meadowlands swamp and not get caught and just come home and have ravioli for dinner. Like, who fucking wants to hear that story? Who wants to hear it? Laura, am I nuts that this just isn't, not only is it violent and unpleasant, but it's also just not to me, it's not interesting. What are your thoughts?
This is how I know this wasn't interesting. I tried to watch this twice and I kept falling asleep. And I was like, I'm not really that tired. Why am I falling asleep with the show? I don't know. I mean, it was interesting that this guy, Sammy the Bull, had this big background or whatever, but in the general context of the story about ecstasy dealing in Arizona and who was involved, I guess that was their hook to make the ecstasy story interesting. And I didn't find it that compelling in the end. I just found it kind of fell flat to me. The most interesting part was hearing about how that guy managed to smuggle all the ecstasy in his pants.
Yeah. His giant pants. Those big, I remember those jeans. I remember those Gen X, a little period where those giant jeans were in style. I'm sure Toby wore them. I mean, they were super popular. Right, Toby? You wore those jeans?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Still do.
Does anyone believe that Sammy actually only financed the specific number of 4 drug deals, and then he's saying it as if well, that's very different as if I financed 10 or 1,000, that's different.
It was just 4.
It was just 4, right? Because that's not big money. Just like it's not big money to join us on Patreon.
No, it's not. It's little money.
You don't need to dig up. You don't need to dig up $1 million in your backyard to join us on Patreon. In fact, you can join us 7 days for free. You'll get all sorts of exclusive stuff, including the Crime Writers on After Show. This week on the After Show, Rebecca's going to give us a true crime update.
That's right.
Going to be talking about the latest in the Adnan Syed case.
That's right. I'm going to fill you in.
Other great podcasts that you get exclusively include Rebecca's Readathon about the Karen Reed case, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and our own advice podcast, Married with Podcast. And on the latest episode, listener asks, does her son have ADD?
Oh.
And we will find out.
Yeah.
Because we could
because we're psychiatrists.
We could absolutely diagnose it.
Yeah, and through the podcast airwaves, we are the most qualified people to diagnose other people's conditions. Show us your wounds. Tell us your symptoms. We will diagnose you, and we will be right every time.
And Toby Ball is actually just finished compiling his list of the books that he's going to be covering for 2025 in the deep dive. Toby's got February's book, and everybody should be downloading it on their Kindle or getting the audiobook version or checking it out from the library. Toby, what's the book?
It's called Murder in the Bayou by Ethan Brown. And once I get everything settled, I will post the book list on various social media sites so people can see what's coming up.
Awesome.
And we will have that book list on our Amazon page. Go to amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. You get to see all of our favorite things. Plus, you get to see links to, all of Toby's books. They'll be there. So lastly, about Patreon, can I just drop one piece of advice for folks?
100.
We're asking you that if you're going to join us on Patreon, you might want to join by using your laptop. Because if you joined Patreon using the app on the iPhone App Store, Apple will add an additional 30% to your bill each month. Yeah, they do this for everybody.
Wait, they add it to your bill or they take 30%?
They add 30%. So
That's
we
wild.
don't lose 30%. We still get the amount that you played, but then they just add to that. So what you need to do,
surcharge.
Yeah. What you need to do is you can avoid this by subscribing or paying on a web browser or with an Android app. So that's just a little thing for you. We don't get more money because Apple adds it, or they don't take away from our subscription. But just like everything else that Apple does with any sort of payment, which if you know anything about Apple, that's what they do. They just take it. So our advice to you is to save a little bit of that money. That way, in case you have to go on the lam, you'll have that extra bit in your pocket.
That's right. And while you have your phone in your hands, make sure to leave a nice review for this podcast. Leave us a good review and then share the podcast with a friend maybe who hasn't listened to us before or hasn't listened in a while.
Doesn't hurt.
Kevin, does thus end our business section?
Thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now. Kevin, who's our next sponsor for this podcast?
Oh, we're brought to you by HelloFresh.
HelloFresh.
Tired of figuring out what's for dinner night after night?
Yes.
Especially on those busy weekdays?
Yes.
Get dinner done an easier way thanks to HelloFresh.
HelloFresh.
Now, look, I think that, you can sell a product on a lot of different points. We could talk about the quality of the food, the price point. Let me just talk about convenience for a second.
Do it.
Okay. there's a lot of us that when we do takeout, we're going to like get pizza or get something from the Chinese restaurant. We're doing that not because we've been looking forward all day to that restaurant.
Right.
We've been doing it because
we're tired.
5 or 6 o'clock comes around, you haven't thought about it, and so you're looking for something convenient.
Correct.
You're willing to spend a couple of bucks for that convenience so somebody
More
can
than
bring
a couple.
Oh yeah, I mean when we get Chinese food,
it's like $100. Wild.
So I'm offering you something that is both convenient and at a great price point. It's HelloFresh. It's easy to find time to eat well. They have 50 wholesome, hassle-free meals, so you got a lot to choose from. And HelloFresh's new ready-made meals, they go from the fridge to your fork in just 3 minutes.
Amazing. So get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
CWO10FM.
1 item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
CWO10FM.
FM for free meals.
ABC Wednesdays. Tim Allen and Kat Dennings star in the new family comedy Shifting Gears.
Dad, I'm broke and I need a place to stay until I figure out what the rest of my life looks like.
So, a couple of days.
When his daughter moves back in,
The last time you walked out that door, you looked back at me and gave me a double bird.
I was 18. The double bird was how I ended all our conversations.
the wheels come off.
Can we try to talk to each other like rational adults?
Have you watched the news lately? That's not a thing anymore.
New Wednesdays, 8, 7 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
So, Kevin, this show left you cold?
Yeah, but the winter clothes at Quince will never leave you cold.
Nice.
Did you not get what you wanted for Christmas?
I got
No,
a
I'm
lot
not
of
asking
it.
you.
Oh.
I'm not asking you. I'm
Oh.
talking to the listener.
Oh, okay.
Did you not get what you wanted for Christmas?
They didn't.
Nor did you not get what you wanted for your December birthday, where everybody just gives you a gift and says this is for both. What a ripoff, right?
Lame.
Super lame. All right, well, you know.
Here's one shoe for your birthday, another shoe for Christmas.
I like how that works, yeah. One glove, yeah. Treat yourself to a little something without spending a fortune with Quince. So all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands because they partner directly with top factories and cut out the middleman,
Oh, yeah.
passing the savings on to you. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. Rebecca, I know that you are the unofficial ambassador of Quince
That's
to
right.
the world.
And I did some Christmas shopping there. Want to hear what I got?
Yeah, tell us
I mean,
about
you
it.
saw. I gave your daughter an incredible faux fur jacket. I have the same one, a white, super fuzzy one. It's amazing. And I gave one of our kids a cashmere fisherman sweater from Quince. It's so beautiful.
That will definitely keep them warm. So treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/crime for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
So, Toby, do you feel like an expert in the ecstasy trade now that you've watched this documentary?
Yes.
Expert?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, so this is one of the things about this documentary is that you don't really learn much about what's actually going on. It's just people telling stories mostly. So they'll say things like, well, English Shaun, like he started getting his pills from Holland and they were cheaper there. And then he cornered the market in Phoenix again. It's like, I don't even know what that looks like. I mean, what are you talking about? Like, what is cornering the market? Like, can you explain? Do you go to like a rave and then there's like English Shaun's guys over there and there's Joe Papa or whatever his name is Mike Papa and his guys are over on the other side. You can go to one or the other.
It's like a Starbucks on one corner and a Dunks on the other. Let's see who you get your Molly from.
It's like, how does this all kind of play out? I mean, I don't understand that. And it was just like, well, and then they started, Mike Papa and Gerald were like, well, if you're selling it cheaper, we're going to take half of what you make. Just like, okay. So you just said that and they're like, oh, fuck. Well, I guess we're out of here. So it just seemed like they're kind of like doing these like really top level things because they don't really care. Like, that's not what this is about. It's about letting these guys run off at the mouth about the crazy shit they did and the different experiences and the issues they have with their dads. So in some ways, it's neither here nor there because it's just not that kind of show.
Yeah. It's more like having, just for the record, it's more like having like a Sainsbury's in one corner and a Market Basket in the other corner, just to clarify what Kevin said. What were you saying, Toby?
Exactly what you just said.
Yes.
I mean, my question that had nothing to do with any of the material, but as I was like, I've never been to a rave. But I said, I bet Toby has been to a rave.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Toby been to a rave?
That was my guess. Which crime writer has been
Only
to
by proxy. My son goes to raves all the time.
Ah.
Really?
Yeah.
They're still a thing?
He's part of that. Yeah.
Does he know a guy named Schoolie?
Festivals. I'm sure there's more than one guy named Schoolie.
Yeah.
That guy was a beauty.
Yeah. But you're right. Like there doesn't seem to be anything particularly interesting about this drug trade or wink, wink drug turf war. It just seems like the most interesting thing about it just happens to be that Sammy the Bull Gravano is associated with it, and that he apparently put up some money for his son. Like he would apparently, he bought a restaurant for his son to be a chef in, but he wouldn't put up a bunch of money for him to do his side drug trade because he's got a whole bunch of credit card debt.
Yeah.
And I think, Toby, this is kind of what you were saying, was that the crime part doesn't really seem to be outstanding or twisty in any sort of way. It's just that you've got a couple of weird characters here.
Yeah, well, the one thing that we never learn, Laura, is what's wrong with taking ecstasy. This doc makes it seem great.
What's wrong with selling ecstasy?
You just buy it cheap one place and then sell it for more money another place. It sounds so easy.
Super fun experience.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I might go get some ecstasy after watching this.
You 100% should.
Yeah.
We should totally do it at Exeter Lit Fest this year.
Yes. We should do
that
a
would
rave.
be awesome. Have a rave at Exeter Lit Fest.
Toby's eyes just lit up
Get
like
some
this.
high-end DJs into the town hall.
Into the Ioka Theater.
Yeah. Ooh,
we could have one of those silent disco parties where you put on the headphones and it's like the disco party, but you can't hear it except on your headphones.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it could be an adventure.
Like the sessions at Podcast Movement.
Yeah, there's lasers and shit now.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, Laura. But seriously, though, the documentary did not teach. I mean, not that every documentary is supposed to teach you something. There was no illuminating moment where I was like, oh, this actually is a really not great thing that they're doing, and here's why. Or is this just a case where ecstasy actually is fine and this is just part of the war on drugs and they just like to arrest people left and right? But that's just something we just never get to.
Well, and I wondered as I was watching it, I was actually thinking about that, and I was like, well, maybe this was in the era when ecstasy wasn't cut with other stuff and you didn't have to worry about getting elephant drugs or something and dying, or I was like, maybe we missed the golden era of ecstasy and the stuff now that everyone's maybe that's what this is really about.
Oh, the golden era of ecstasy.
The golden era of ecstasy.
But I guess the good stuff, you have to drive across country. You got to drive from Phoenix to New York to meet some guy where maybe you're going to get whacked because your father was a bad dude, and then drive all the way back for a weekend's worth of cash. And I'm like, dude needs to take the train.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a fly, for fuck's sake.
He said he made $80,000 his first weekend doing this or something like that, which, wiped out his $80,000 in credit card debt that he tells us he has. What a moron this guy is.
Most of it's in chains.
Can we talk about the level of buffoonery that goes on?
Sure.
The little bit of crime that we see is just completely ridiculous. The things that we see are, Gerard decides he's got to whack English Shaun, right? And so he shows up to some club, right, as English Shaun's leaving. It's like, oh, well, I guess he's gone. And that's the end of that.
I had 2-3 guns on me, and I had a shovel in the back of my car. Plan was to walk up to him, choke him out, put him to sleep, carry him out, put him in the car. I was prepared to kill him and bury him in the desert.
Sammy Gravano, even though he has a money counter, can't accurately count the money, and that's what actually ends up leading him to jail. When Schoolie decides he wants to stop Wild Woman from dealing drugs so openly that's going to get him in trouble, his idea is he's going to throw a smoke bomb through her window and actually hits her in the face with it. I mean, it's just buffoon on top of buffoon. And it's quite honestly, how English Shaun picked Schoolie to be one of his main guys, and then Schoolie managed not to get busted almost immediately is just almost beyond belief.
He's like Skinny Pete from Breaking Bad.
It's I don't know Breaking Bad, but it's just there are these shadows in the club, and if you're out there, you can't see in the shadows. So Schoolie would just hang out in the shadows. Like, seriously? Like, the Phoenix police couldn't figure this out? It's like, where all these people keep going in the shadows and coming back. And like,
he's hiding behind a pole.
He was hiding in his big pants. He could like go inside them so they couldn't see him.
It's fucking ridiculous.
But your eyes do adjust to the dark, so eventually.
He just went to a corner, hid behind one of those pylons that they have in the warehouse where they were having the rave.
It wasn't so dark that he couldn't make change.
No.
Yeah. Oh, God.
So,
the
Kevin,
whole thing was bizarre.
Our other big character, as we've mentioned before, is British Shaun or English Shaun. It's English Shaun, right?
It's English Shaun. He does not represent Wales or Northern Ireland. It's England.
They have different ecstasy there.
Or Scotland. Kevin, what are your thoughts about English Shaun?
Well, he's kind of interesting in the sense, like, he doesn't seem like a kingpin. So as crime stories go, this could have been set up completely like he's the protagonist. Like, he is the focus of this story, and it's like, oh no, he happens to make enemies with, of all people, Sammy the Bull Gravano and his son Gerald. It's like it could have been completely flipped the other way. And hey, bonus points to Shaun for hugging it out with his father at the end. It's about fathers and sons. You're right. This is all about daddy issues. But he seemed he wasn't somebody who was like born into the life, and he certainly seems like somebody who's okay to walk away from it. And again, to the extent that we can believe that anybody's being completely sincere about everything that they've done, I probably would say if anybody, my money would be on him. But he isn't different from the Gravanos because he's from Liverpool. He's just cut from a different cloth.
Well, he had been a stockbroker.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is like, this is the thing I never fucking understand with these stupid idiot men, okay? And it's always men in these documentaries, and I don't mean to stereotype, but we haven't seen one where a woman has said this particular thing. I used to have this straight and narrow job, which made me a shit ton of money. And I decided to give that up to do this thing that is objectively more difficult and for which I could spend the rest of my life in prison because it made me a little more money. Like, you fucking idiot. Like, this is such an idiotic sort of like way to think. And it's like, we think it's going to be easier or whatever. They're going to like corner the market, as Toby said, whatever the fuck that means. Just keep being a stockbroker. Isn't that just easier? Like, objectively, maybe you have to work a few more hours a day or whatever.
I just think it's more exciting, probably. Like, you're a stock trader in fucking Phoenix. Or you could hang out at raves all the time and be just like handing out
both.
drugs.
You can do coke and hang out at raves if you're a stockbroker.
Hey man, you've only got so many hours in the day, man.
Yeah. What did you think of English Shaun, Laura?
Yeah, it was a little bit like when you were just describing it, Rebecca, a little bit like Ozark. And it's like Jason Bateman's character who's like got this job. And then all of a sudden now he's in a life of crime. And you're like, okay. So it was just interesting to me that he was able to, like, they said he had 200 employees.
Yeah.
Like, was the desire for ecstasy and the market such that he really could sustain 200 employees?
To be fair, they were independent contractors, right?
Okay. They weren't 1090. Yeah, they weren't W-2s. They were 1099s.
Yeah, there was no 401k for this.
I think it's the classic, like, he's got 10 guys who he gives pills to, and they've each got 10 guys, and suddenly you got 100.
He's a job maker.
Kevin, you have a really fun note that I just want you to tell us about the rhetoric of these people and like the words they like to throw out there.
Anytime some guy has a tattoo that says loyalty, odds are he fucked somebody over eventually.
Loyalty, I live by that.
Were you loyal to Shaun?
Yeah, always. Until the end. Until the end. Yeah. When the ship sinks, I guess everybody runs their own way.
I mean, there's like this code, but it just sounds more like rationalization whenever they talk about loyalty. Sammy says that Gotti turned on him first. Sure. So you had no choice. I'm going to have a giant tattoo that says loyalty. Here's the one time like the filmmaker called somebody out on their bullshit.
Yeah. So Toby, this Papa thing, talk about loyalty. The Gravano family seems to think that like it was inevitable that Papa was going to flip on them, right?
See, I think, again, this shows like sort of like mafia derangement syndrome, which is like, how fucking idiotic do you have to be to see like one of the most renowned, brutal mafia killers shows up in your town and you're like, I want to team up with that guy because I can fuck him over. Like, there's no way. I mean, it's crazy. Like, nobody is that dumb. I think it's like they've got the mindset that they're still back in New York City and, you know, there's 5 families or whatever, and they're all like playing games with each other. This is just some knucklehead. He wants to lift weights and sell X. He doesn't have some big plan. He certainly doesn't want to lock horns with a mafia enforcer.
Yeah.
It's the way it kind of played out. And he's not a tough guy. He folded.
Kevin, the end of this documentary, I hated, but it features this sort of like father and son reflection moment. What were your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like if like there was any part where there was possibly that Sammy and Gerald were like being honest about anything, it might have been in this scene where they're playing pool. Obviously, the setup is staged for the camera.
You think?
But, you know, and like the whole idea, let's bring this up. I mean, I got the sense that I thought that maybe Gerald was being a little sincere with his vulnerability with his father. I think that there was some truth to that. You know, like, hey, you're a great dad too, Sammy. But Sammy doesn't really seem to let his guard down at all. It's just like, it demonstrates how emotionally unavailable this father was. But, you know, again, it's still got to be like the, hey, you know, I took the hit and you take the hit. And if anybody's going to kind of understand what it means to have a father, or I should say a family member who goes to jail, it should be him because his dad went to jail, right? Yeah. Sammy's dad, as far as you know, didn't go to jail. He was just in jail. He didn't get like what that means. So if you're going to be like upset and trying to like say, I'm sorry, I put everybody in this situation, you know who probably never said that? Sammy the Bull.
Hey friends, Ted Danson here, and I want to let you know about my new podcast. It's called Where Everybody Knows Your Name, with me, Ted Danson, and Woody Harrelson, sometimes. Doing this podcast is a chance for me and my good bud Woody to reconnect after Cheers wrapped 30 years ago. Plus, we're introducing each other to the friends we've met since, like Jane Fonda, Conan O'Brien, Eric Andre, Mary Steenburgen, my wife, and Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And trust me, it's always a great hang when Woody's there. So why wait? Listen to Where Everybody Knows Your Name, wherever you get your podcasts.
ABC Wednesdays. Tim Allen and Kat Dennings star in the new family comedy Shifting Gears.
Dad, I'm broke and I need a place to stay until I figure out what the rest of my life looks like.
So, a couple of days.
When his daughter moves back in.
The last time you walked out that door, you looked back at me and gave me a double bird.
I was 18. The double bird was how I ended all our conversations.
The wheels come off.
Can we try to talk to each other like rational adults?
Have you watched the news lately? That's not a thing anymore.
New Wednesdays, 8, 7 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Some things you wouldn't mind being stuck with, like a huge inheritance. But a phone that has to be plugged in just right so it charges is not one of those things. Switch to Verizon and we'll pay off your old phone up to $800 via prepaid MasterCard for a new one on us. Just trade in any phone from our top brands with select unlimited plans. $829.99 purchase with new smartphone line on select unlimited plans. Minimum $90 per month with auto pay plus taxes and fees for 36 months required. Less $830 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Trade-in terms apply. Payoff phone requires smartphone purchase and port-in with new smartphone line on select plan. Must provide most recent bill showing payoff amount of eligible phone. Additional terms apply.
Put educational improvement on your New Year's resolution list. IXL makes learning fun through engaging video lessons and interactive problems that adapt to your child's learning pace. Plus, with the app, kids can learn on the go, and one subscription covers all your children's educational needs. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And our listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/20. Visit IXL.com/20 to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out Sons of Ecstasy? It's a Max original documentary. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Sons of Ecstasy?
A mild thumbs down on this. It wasn't horrible, but it just didn't keep my attention in a way that I felt like I was watching it for any sort of compelling reason. It was a mob story. We had mob characters. We had some colorful characters, like in the vein of like Florida Man stories, those sort of things. So, you know, we did have people that were just kind of telling us these wild stories. But they were doing so unchecked with no pushback. So you have to sort of suspend disbelief about what might or might not be true. And in the end, I just felt like it was a story about ecstasy in Arizona that wouldn't have been interesting if there wasn't this mob connection that they brought in, which in the end really wasn't that interesting, except for the fact that this guy is still alive and looks remarkably well preserved. So mild thumbs down for me.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Sons of Ecstasy?
I think preserved, but I don't know if remarkably well. He looked like he'd been pulled out of the specimen jar.
Like a leather purse.
He looked like one of those Applehead dolls left out in the sun for a week.
That's exactly what it was.
It's so, and when you see the pictures of him when he's younger, you're like, what's going on here? They probably had to do some plastic surgery or something. Anyway, that's neither here nor there for my review. Yeah, it's an hour and a half of dudes just talking about shit they did in Arizona. And I don't think they're quite aware of how, kind of lame the actual what they were doing was, but they could all kind of tell stories. So there's that. You're never really given enough information to really understand what's going on besides sort of these personality conflicts. So you're not really oriented. You can't really envision any of the stuff that they're talking about happening. It's just so generalized when they're talking about the actual sort of conflict. And then otherwise it's just telling these stories. I don't know. I give it sort of a thumb sideways. Like, if you just want to watch something that's going to be like mildly amusing for an hour and a half, like there's worse things you could do, but is it like good? Like, I can't imagine making this and when not being done, being like, yeah, that's it. We nailed that thing.
Masterpiece.
It's just like, it's just dudes talking. So it was a thumb sideways from me.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm going to be like Laura and go like a mild thumbs down on this. It's right. I mean, you just got to like pretend that what these guys are saying is worth your time to listen. I mean, it's talking about like a whole group of unreliable narrators. The only thing really interesting about this crime spree is that somebody on the edge of it was kind of I'll admit it, a fascinating mob figure, somebody who ratted out, the Teflon Don and then lived to tell the tale and basically decided, I've had enough of witness protection. Fuck that noise. Let's start a podcast in Phoenix. Anyway, it just doesn't seem like the crime itself, were it not for the fact that the guy's father was Sammy the Bull Gravano, was really worth exploring in depth. So, for me, I'm just going to have to say thumbs down.
Thumbs down for me, too. I mean, as much as I love the glorification of murder and toxic masculinity, I mean, those are like my two favorite things. This just really didn't hold my attention. No, I'm saying I just don't like this kind of content, and that's not the only reason I'm giving it a thumbs down. It's also really boring, in my opinion. It's the kind of thing that a family in Canton would watch, and it would maybe turn them into thinking they were tough guys. But I'm not like that. I'm not the kind of person who sees something like that and it feels inspired.
That's a Karen Reed reference. Everybody.
To change the way I live my life, to maybe have some omerta, to get matching tattoos with my dad. Like, that's not some shit I'm into. I think it's bullshit. I am so tired of the fucking glorification of these, by the way, stupid, toxic men and their violent pasts. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous when you think about who's incarcerated in this country, and these idiots get to walk around free and get to be in documentaries on HBO. Fuck that shit. I'm done with it. Thumbs down for me for Sons of Ecstasy. All right, now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the Crime of the Week. There's a scandal in China involving one of its rising basketball stars. Chong Shi-lian has been suspended for breaking team rules by smuggling his girlfriend into his hotel room in a suitcase. The athlete says the young woman needed a place to do her English homework all night and nothing else. And pics on her social media show her curled up in a suitcase with Chong's name on it. That's really subtle. Fans are peeved because ever since the scandal broke, Chong has been shit on the court. The Guangzhou Long Lions got destroyed by the Qingdao Eagles. The baller only posted 5 points and had 3 turnovers in 25 minutes of play. The Lions are now on an 11-game losing streak that fans are blaming on their romance. This makes them China's version of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, Except not really, because Kansas City has a fucking amazing record this year. So, Panama, none of us are buying that she was just doing homework. What excuse will she give the next time this girl is caught in her boyfriend's room? Laura Bricker, what do you think?
She was helping him with his prostate exam.
Oh, that exam.
Holy shit.
Good Lord.
Toby, what excuse do you think this girl will use the next time she's caught in her boyfriend's room?
I can't even think of anything after the prostate stuff. Scrapbooking.
What do you think, Kevin?
She's going to be repairing this copper pipe with the big crack right down the middle.
Yeah.
So basically saying, I'm only here to be laying pipe.
Exactly.
Which is kind of what she's doing anyway.
Allegedly. All right, that's going to do it for us. Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you online and say, I totally agree with your review of the latest documentary you talked about, how can they find you on social media?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky.
And Joey Ball, folks want to reach out to you and thank you for a long time ago thing that you said on the podcast. How can they find you online?
I can be reached anytime at Toby Ball NH on some of the social media stuff.
What about you, Kevin? How can you be found?
I'm at Kevin Flynn on Blue Sky, Kevin P. Flynn, most places else.
Yeah, you can find me everywhere at Reb Lavoie. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can find the show everywhere, too, at Crime Writers On, except on Blue Sky. I think we're crimewriterson.com. That's how you find us there because we're verified. Get episodes early and ad-free at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You'll also get the after show, Married with Podcast, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcasts. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons. Our editor is the truly terrific and non-toxic and non-masculine Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin Flynn. This show is recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also keep $3 million in cash buried in the backyard in case we suddenly need to move across the country. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later. It's ridiculous when you think about who's incarcerated in this country, and these idiots get to walk around free and get to be in documentaries on HBO. Fuck that shit. I'm done with it. Thumbs down for me for Sons of Ecstasy.
He was in prison for 20 years.
17.
By the way, I've got matching tattoos with my kids. So
yeah, everyone else who's in there for that long gets to make a documentary glorifying the crime they committed to get in there, right? Fuck that bullshit.
At Verizon, anyone can trade in their old phone for a new one on us with Unlimited Ultimate, which means everyone in your family could get a new phone and stay on your family plan, keeping you close.
Hey, Mom, you seen my toothbrush? Yeah, I'm almost done with it.
Oh, maybe too close. Trade in and additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.